One day I am going with my friend Nico to pick up his GF from the school of where the Viet gang was at. I totally forgot they were from that school. As I get there, pull up, and she is walking to the car. I recognize a couple of those guys. They start talking to each other and they start pointing at me. There is at least 5 or 6 of them, but I just stand there parked. I had a .38 revolver under my seat and didn't really care if they came at me. Plus there is only 5 or 6 of them. I'm sure me and Nico would have handled them just fine. They point at me and I open the window and ask, "You got a problem?" The older kid says, "No man, we don't have a problem with you." I nod and say, "Okay, good." Nico's GF gets in the car and we drive off. We never had problems with these guys again. Not sure if the cops got the stabber, though, or what happened there. I spent my last year of high school going to night school and working at a pizza place. Started hanging out with a couple Bosnian guys. I never hanged out with them before, so it was a good thing to start hanging out with my people from back home. They started reeling me back into being a better person and learning to show respect to people and knowing shame or dishonoring my family by being a piece of shit that I was. One day I go pick up my Bosnian friend at his apartment and he says, "Man, these Bosnian guys want to kick my arse from the other part of the city." So I say, "Where are they?" He says, "At the basketball court few blocks away." I say, "Okay, let's go there." He says, "No man, they are going to jump me." I say, "No, let's go." We drive there. I open the tinted windows and they see the guy I picked up. All of a sudden there is a guy with a knife telling my friend to get out so he can cut him up. I open the door and walk out, say, "Come here, stab me." He says, "What?" I said, "You think you're a man? Come here, stab me." He says, "I got no beef with you, man." I say, "Quit being a bitch and come do something. You think you're tough." Of course these Bosnian people, like 10 of them, and one girl never saw me before. Who the fuck was this ghetto big dude talking Bosnian, and why was he so fearless? I look at the girl, her name was Alma, really hot. I tell her, "Why are you dating these punks? Look at them, 10 versus 1 and they won't do anything." The guy with the knife walks up and says, "Look man, we are all Bosnian. We are all brothers. We don't need to do this." I say, "Exactly man, you guys are bitches, though, coming to jump one guy. And on top of that you bring a knife." They were just preppy good Bosnian immigrant kids that thought they would, just get into a little fight. I get back in the car, my friend the Bosnian kid says, "Damn bro, you don't have balls, you have bowling balls. Were you scared?" I said, "Not at all." So my life wasn't getting any better. I graduated high school, got my diploma, was not working, started hanging out with some really bad guys, Russians and Mexicans. They were into all kinds of stuff, hustling, drugs, stealing cars and motorcycles. Every time I came home, or when I came home, sometimes was not home for days, my father fought with me, called me all kinds of names and a disgrace, to the point where he said I should kill myself for being such a letdown. He came to America for us, for me to be something in my life, not to end up dead or in jail, and he said, "Sooner or later you will be in jail, or you will be dead." I know all this, don't think I don't know, I was once young too. My mom cried a lot, my sister ran away from home with some American dude. Imagine a white Bosnian Muslim girl running away with a black American Christian. This put an incredible stress on my parents. I never saw my dad cry until that day. My mother was just traumatized, cried for days and days. My father forbid her to come home. We were ashamed in front of the whole community. People started avoiding us. Going for a drive one day with my daddy says, "What do I do? Do I just go kill her, or what? I can't believe she did this to us." I said, "No dad." "Then what? You go to jail, then what?" By this time my father had bought us a nice house in the suburbs in Seattle by both him and mom working 2 jobs, and while I was a piece of shit getting in trouble, they were both working 2 jobs. Finally, after a year or more of not seeing my sister and my mom begging my father to let her come see us with her new husband, he let her come back and talk to us. Soon as they walked up to the house, I walked away, didn't want to look at my sister or her man. As I was getting in the car, her husband walks up to me, big black dude, says, "Look man, can I just talk to you for a second please? I know how hard this is on you guys." I said, "Okay." He said, "I love your sister, just put yourself in my shoes. what would you do for someone you love, and if her parents and brothers didn't let you be with her?" I sat there and looked at him for a few seconds and said, "Okay, it's not your fault, man, no worries." He shook my hand and that was that. He ended up being a great guy and still is a great guy to this day, and he has a daughter with my sister, my niece, who I love with all my heart. Alright brah, I had to reread and see where I was at. I spent most of my teens after HS working odd jobs, pizza joint or not working at all, just being a bum and living off my hard-working parents. My father was able to buy 2 homes after being in America for about 7 years. He sold the one in Seattle and bought one not too far from Seattle, a bigger home for us. My mom was excited to move, my little brother was still going to school. One evening I went with about 5 friends to a Bosnian community center party. I hardly ever went to those as I did not hang out with Bosnian people and I looked at many of them as either cowards or people that backstabbed each other, being in fights with them. I realized that I was not able to trust them, they were either too traumatized from war and were not people that I was able to depend on to watch my back. I remember one day calling up a Bosnian friend to go with me and pull out one of my Cambodian friends from a club. My Cambodian friend called me up and said, "Let's go get my brother, I need your help, he is a blood and he is in a club in Chinatown and there are about 30 or so Crips there waiting for him outside." I said okay, I'm coming, called up a couple of Russian buddies, met up with my Cambodian friend and we headed out to Chinatown. I called up the Bosnian guy I hanged out with, told him let's go man, I need you to watch my back, told him the story, he said no I don't want to go. So I came with the Russian guys there, asked if they brought guns with them. Both handguns on them, so the 4 of us walk into this club, 3 white guys and 1 Cambodian. As we are walking through the front door there are about 30 guys all wearing blue just mean mugging us. We go up to the table where my friend's brother was sitting, he stands up, takes his shirt off and now has a tank top on. Swole arse Cambodian guy tats all over. So the 5 of us head for the front door, one of the Russians lifts his shirt and tucks it behind the gun, the other one opens his jacket up to show the shoulder-holstered Glock. I had my 9mm tucked behind my back in the belt and put my shirt up behind the grip so they could see it when we walked in. As we were walking out the main door all the Crips stood up and started looking at one older bald guy. He looked at us, stood up, threw a bottle down in front of us. I put my hand behind my back and gripped the 9mm. The Russian guys did the same. The leader of the Crips looked at my boy and said, "Next time, just watch yourself by ch." We walked out of there and I seriously thought we were going to shoot someone and go to jail. But as luck had it, we pulled him out and we went home. Anyways, as I went to the Bosnian party I walked in through the front door and there was a girl there, she was about 5'3" and young, perfect body, brown shoulder-length hair in layers. She walked away from me, I didn't see her face, but she had a blue dress on, she just looked perfect from behind. I told my boys jokingly, "No one talks to her, that is my wifey." I saw her walking by in the lobby few times, she walked up to me and smiled, said in English, "That necklace is cute." I said in Bosnian, "I know, but I'm cuter." She smiled and said, "OMG, you speak Bosnian?" I said, "Yeah, I am Bosnian." She said, "Wow, you don't look like it at all." I asked her what happened to her left hand. "There is a scar there." She said she was shot in Bosnia by a sniper, her left bicep and tricep was scarred, a flesh wound. I told her, "Before I leave I want her phone number." She came back a few minutes later with a note and her number on it. She was 17 and I was 18. She said it's her uncle's house and I have to call her there on the weekend because her dad doesn't want guys calling her house. I called a few days later the number and asked her aunt if she was there. She wasn't, but a few minutes later she called me back and we started talking. I dated her for a few months. She didn't let me sleep with her. She was a virgin. I kept trying to hit it, made her skip school, brought her over to my house many times, took her out, but she wouldn't budge. Then finally one day she just told me she doesn't want to be with me anymore. This was the one and only girl that ever broke my heart. I was devastated by her. I literally was a beta, begged her to come back to me for a few months. Finally one day I was like, "You know what, you are going to come back on your knees, forget that I ever knew you." A month or so later she called me and said, "Do you want to go to prom with me and my friend? You can be her date." I said not to call me again. One time she had her friend call me to ask if I wanted to go to her B-day party. I told her friend, "Let me talk to my ex." She said hello. I told her, "Forget that you ever knew me, don't ever call me again." I started seeing her at Bosnian parties again and again, going there with my parents. I was the guy that other Bosnian guys didn't mess with. I worked out and never stopped since I was 16. Now I was 19 and strong as an ox, always with a bunch of bad kids, always had nice cars and clothes. Soon as I would show up to the parties, the girls would just swarm me in my car, but she wouldn't stop staring at me. She would go to my mom and tell her, "He doesn't talk to me." She would come out, give me a hug. I would just hug her and say hi, then start talking to other girls. Soon I started hanging out with her sister and cousin and her every once in a while. So as we started hanging out most weekends, she started chasing after me all the time, just wanting to ride with me, talk to me, be around me, etc. One night as we were going home and she was getting gas, I walked up to her car from my car to say bye to her. She was sitting in her car and crying. I said, "Why are you crying?" She said, "Because I love you. You are not even paying attention to me. You don't care about me. I chase after you like a dog, but you just don't care." I looked at her and said, "I have to go to my boy's party, my Cambodian friend." I said, "Look, I'm gonna go there and call you in a few hours and we will talk, okay?" She said okay. Well, I forgot, went to the party, got drunk with my Bosnian friend and a bunch of Cambodian gangsters, got lost going home because my Bosnian friend was driving and I was drunk. I didn't call her. So a week later I call her to see what she is doing. She says, "I'm here with my BF." I was like, "What? You have a BF?" She says, "Yeah. You just don't care about me. What am I supposed to do?" I was like, "I'm coming over in 30 minutes. I know who the guy was." She basically used him to have me go over to her house. I tell her he'll be there. He better be gone by the time I get there. I get there and the guy is gone. I start talking to her. She said she just said that to make me go see her. That night her parents weren't home. I got in the bed with her and ended up kissing with her and all that. She still wasn't giving up sex. Few weeks later, after hanging out all the time, I finally took her virginity from her at my house. She bled and cried and told me she loved me. So I started dating her and started spending a lot of time with her, stopped hanging out with many of my friends, pissed them off, but it was good for me. I stopped getting in trouble. I started looking for work too. She was always there for me. My father told her one day, "You actually saved my son. You kept him out of trouble. You kept him out of jail." She was always good to me. My friends started hating her. I started loving her. I didn't want to hear many of these guys call her names anymore. I stopped hanging out with them. I got a job for this security firm doing security at some building. Started spending more times with my parents and brother. She was with me every weekend and almost every day. She would sleep at her house, go to college and come over see me every day. After doing this for 3 years, she asked me if I ever thought of marriage. I looked at her and thought I never felt like this about any girl, and marrying her was perfect for me. I was tired of her never being able to spend the night with me at my house. Her dad wouldn't allow that. So after dating for 3 years we decided to get married. My parents made a huge wedding, and her parents as well. We had over 300 guests, a band and all kinds of alcohol and food. I remember the first night we came home. I was still living with my parents. We came into the room and she had her wedding dress on. She took it off and we got into bed. I didn't feel lonely anymore. She was there with me. She was my wife. She was mine. After a year my daughter was born. I cut the cord and all. I was still working security and she was at home, hardly making end meets, living with my parents. Cultural thing. A son and a newlywed daughter-in-law aren't supposed to leave the family of the husband. It's looked at disrespect. I got a better job and was making good money, working security for a billionaire in the area. I was working at his house. But I started thinking about my daughter. I wanted to have a better education than just HS. I decided to go to college, wife, a kid and a full-time job. I still started going to college. After about 5 years I got my bachelor's degree in business. I decided to continue my education. I decided to go for my master's degree in business. I am almost there. I have been working hard trying to make a better life for us. In 2008 of April we had a son as well. Many times when I see war movies or think of my life, what I went through, I think of my kids, I hug them. Many times I have cried alone just thanking God that they are born in the USA. My biggest goal in life is to be a good father and a good husband. I have failed in many aspects of my life. I have not been a good person. I have sinned many times. I have hurt my wife, my family and my kids. I am not perfect. I have just recently told my wife about my life, what I have been through. One night I sat there for 2 hours talking to her and crying for hours. I could not stop crying. I told her everything. She sat there and cried with me. There is many more things I missed, mostly the violence, the bullying in school, me being a bully to other etc. I am not proud of what I became. I am not proud of my life. I am hoping to be half as good a father that my father was. My life and my childhood has made me into who I am. Honest to God, I wish I was a better human being. I try to be though. I try to spend as much time with my family. I love my family and would die for them. If I had to work 3 full-time jobs so they don't go hungry I would go to hell for them, crawl and beg people on the street because I was there once and know how painful it is. Like I said, thank you all for reading. I hope and pray that I can be a good human being, that I can take care of my family the best I can, and thank you all so much. Reading this again has brought me into tears.